Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the so-called Grossman Files. Hope everyone's doing well out there. I actually started the show a little early here without my freaking normal intro. So I'm not even sure if like it got me in the beginning or what, but whatever. Yeah, you know what? Maybe we'll start over. Yeah, I didn't even load anything up. Today was a very spontaneous show. So I hope everyone's doing well out there. Thank you so much for joining me today in this little impromptu pop up. And what are we doing today? Well, today is all about London Calling. And we're going to talk today about and actually read a very fun little interesting article from the Daily Mail in England from August 13th, 1977. And of course, why are we doing this? Well, because this is arrest week. This is the week that David Berkowitz shot. Yo, what's going on, Mill Sir? And everybody out there in the chat, thank you for being here today. This is the week, of course, really a span of about 11 days where Berkowitz shot Stacy and Robert in Brooklyn. And then the hunt began because he got a parking ticket in Brooklyn and it was eventually traced to David Berkowitz in Yonkers. And then they call up the Yonkers Police Department. The great Wheat car picks up the phone, absolute hero of Son of Sam. And she directs the NYPD straight to David Berkowitz, who had been harassing her and her family since April and whose name she knew since June. And of course, she wasn't the person who actually picked up the phone that day. It was a guy named Sal DiMaggio who picked up the phone that day, handed it to Wheat. Of course, we did a show on that because one of the myths about Son of Sam, and as far as the alleged conspiracy is concerned, actually an alleged conspiracy, there was no conspiracy, was that Wheat was placed in Yonkers PD in order to do this or whatever. I mean, it's just shooting monkeys in a barrel at this point. Literally, people make stuff up whenever they need to make something up to fit with their worldview in terms of this cult business. Then they just do it. And of course, it's suspicious that Wheat was. No, it isn't. She was a Yonkers civilian police dispatcher for years at that point, way before Berkowitz even moved to town. How was that suspicious that she was on duty that night and was the one that picked up the phone? Again, it's the matter of the real world versus this fantasy world that a lot of people live in. And we over here choose to live in the world of reality. I mean, it's cool if people want to believe fantasies. I mean, listen, people still read each other Rumpelstiltskin. They still read Little Red Robin Hood, The Three Little Bears. I mean, they're reading these fairy tales to each other every day. And, you know, the ultimate evil is another one of those. Just add that to the list. So great to see everybody. We got a little fun little group here, or just a few people in this impromptu pop-up. But that's the way it goes in this particular day because, well, I had no idea I was going to do a show today. It's just a rainy day. I could barely work in the gardens today, and I had to leave the gardens because if you're a gardener, one thing you do not want to do is work in the rain or in the wet. It's terrible for the soil. You end up compacting the soil. It's really bad stuff. So I got out early this morning and I was able to get about an hour and a half in before I was forced home. And since I don't like sitting around and basically doing nothing, I decided to look for an article in the Savino archives and bring you this one today. So again, it was arrest week. Arrest 11 days. And so I figured in this time period, while we're sort of living in real time, and it's August 8th, 2024 today, and in 1977, August 8th, David Berkowitz was shitting in his pants in Brooklyn because he knew that he was about to get arrested. And he was acting all sorts of crazy. August 6th, he lit his neighbor's door on fire. That's Craig Glassman. Then allegedly he went out and looked for Wheat car with a wig on, according to Ruben Anthony, although I no longer believe that police report since it was made a week after the arrest and during a period where everybody was just inserting themselves into this case. So that police report must be taken with a grain of salt. But it was a very busy time in Son of Sam land in 1977, and so we're trying to capture a little bit of the feel of that in these particular Wendy Savino archive shows. So what I did today, because I got a much longer show coming up this Sunday on the Smile of David Berkowitz, but what I wanted to do today was just a quick pop up on just one article that I found rather interesting because it was written. Well, let's just get to it. Why don't we just start and get to it? So, London Calling, and of course, we're talking about the Daily Mail from England, which costs 8 pence, and from Saturday, August 13th, 1977. And it's a not a very long article, but it's written from the English perspective, and there's actually some interesting little tidbits. I don't know whether they're true or not, but they certainly are something that no one has ever really read in the Son of Sam world before. And so we want to just get this on the historical record so people can add it to their knowledge base. And hopefully, in the comments section, we can talk about certain things and discuss things, because that's really what this is all about at this point. Nobody, including myself, unless we get very lucky, which I don't think is going to happen, there's no big revelations coming out in Son of Sam anymore. Yes, we are looking for other victims. Yes, we do have some things, interesting things we're looking at behind the scenes. But again, let's face it. It's seeming like the major revelations have ended with Wendy Savino, and of course, what an amazing revelation that was. Finding a new victim in Son of Sam. It still has not yet hit the wider world. I have a feeling 2025 will be the year that really starts to come into fruition, and people start really taking that a little bit more seriously. And that's basically it. So what's interesting, of course, about this picture here. So my show on Sunday is going to be about Berkowitz's famous smile. So even the freaking caption here, still the silly smile. Berkowitz in custody. As we're going to learn on Sunday, Berkowitz's smile was one of the biggest characteristics written about him in the immediate aftermath of his arrest. And that's important given the context, of course, of the Wendy Savino shooting. But we'll get into that more when we actually talk about that topic. I just wanted to, as an aside, show you that even in this article, which I did not pick for our upcoming Sunday show about Berkowitz's smile, even in England, they knew about it. Still the silly smile. Okay. This dude said he was nervous. I can understand that for like one split second. You're nervous, you give a nervous smile. But, dude, this guy was smiling everywhere he went. I mean, this is sick. So anyway, let's read this article because it's I like this one. So again, what I did here was just put the first panel of the article. It was from Roderick Gilchrist, who wrote for the Daily Mail but lived in New York. And this is the entire panel here of the first page, but I blew it up a little bit so we can read it a little easier amongst ourselves. And Kaiser, I appreciate this comment. I don't think it really gets bigger than finding a new victim. And we're very, of course, very happy and that we brought closure to the first known victim of Son of Sam that we discovered. And it's really, it's funny because this world of Son of Sam is so factionalized, right? And like, there's teams. Are you pro Maury or anti Maury? Do you believe in the cult? Do you not believe in the cult? Even within people who don't believe in the cult theory, there's factions, right? And fighting. And of course, I'm riding above all of that. I don't give a shit about any of it. Haven't engaged in any of this backroom bullshit drama in many, many months. But I saw yesterday an episode of my new favorite show, and you're going to be like, new favorite show? This shit is like you're 30 years behind the times. And yes, my new favorite show is called The X-Files. I'm about 30 years too late. I really enjoy recording them on my DVR and watching them. It's just not every episode. Up until season 5, they're really good. And then after season 5, they become, well, comical and ridiculous. But I was watching season 1, episode 3 yesterday, and one of the FBI agents, he's like a career go-getter, right? And all he's interested in is like screwing people over and backstabbing and taking credit for things that he didn't do, and factionalism. And so Scully is trying to solve this case. So this guy goes to her in a moment of anger. He goes, "Scully, whose side are you on?" Right? And Scully, without missing a beat, she says, "I'm on the side of the victims." And that really struck me, actually, because it was sort of like my worldview on this, um, crystallized into one sentence. I couldn't care less about factions or about fighting people or about arguing with anyone. I'm interested in the victims and bringing them justice and closure. And of course, the one that we found here, which is our contribution to the Son of Sam case and the history of this case, it'll always be known, and it's going to be solidified in 2025 even more. Just mark my words. I've never been wrong about these predictions. We just want to bring peace to these people and closure and get their stories known and that kind of stuff. So anyhow, we got quite a bit to do today, so let's get rocking and rolling. Well, here's a new person here I've never seen. Manny, I've been watching since day 3. I was looking at Untermeyer footage, found your very first post, been along for the whole wild ride. Well, cool, because I've never seen your name before, Clark Rice. So good for you to make yourself known 3.5 years later. Welcome to the chat. And of course, thank you so much for supporting what we do here all the years. If you have been around, as you say, since day 3, then you have seen everything that has gone on in this crazy video series of ours, going from absolute Maury Terry sycophants, lovers of the cult theory, absolutely believing in Vinny and Danny, thinking that Billy the artist was actually sketching Moloch and Maria and Ken in Untermeyer Park. And then we went into the whole Lake Avenue period where we were convinced that the pedophiles of Lake Avenue were the progenitors of the 22 disciples of hell. And Dr. Honorato was involved in all of that with the hierarchy of the Sacred Heart Church. And of course, all this whoosao was being given to me by these morons in Maury Terry's Facebook group. And I went out and I investigated it and, of course, found it to be 100% bullshit, which, of course, led us to where we are now, which is the full understanding that Maury Terry, well, basically lied his story into existence. And if you have no compunctions about lying to people, you can write anything you want in a book. The key is we're now discerning enough as an audience and as a community to understand the game that was played on us. And of course, a lot of that came from finding these people like Billy the artist, right? To me, Billy the artist is all you need if you want to ever disavow Maury Terry or try to quote argue unquotes with someone who still believes in Maury Terry. Just tell them to watch Billy the artist and then come back to you, and then you can have a conversation. So hey, here's a person from there's a person from Hamamoto. Wow, that's a blast from the past. That's cool. And I know Nikozmas, of course, is a Professor Hamamoto fan. I never had any issues with Hamamoto. Of course, I haven't heard from him in years. And I think that just my own suspicion is that he knows that I'm no longer into the whole Maury Terry conspiracy stuff. So, I think he goes down those routes more than I personally choose to. But I have nothing but respect for Professor Hamamoto and his work. And listen, when it comes to conspiracies, I've said it a million times, like I'm there with you on a lot of these things. I was the OG going back from 1995 when I recognized that Oklahoma City was an inside job. At that moment, I became totally anti-system. So by the time 9/11 came around, I knew that day that it was an inside job. And then, of course, all the fake wars and, of course, all the fake financial troubles and fake bubbles and economic booms and busts, which, of course, led us all to the ultimate scam in 2020. And I'm still on board with all that stuff. So it's funny that people think I'm some apologist for the system, when in reality I'm not. No, but when it comes to Son of Sam, we just have to be realistic, and we have to deal with the evidence that actually exists in front of us in the real world. It's cool to believe in your fantasies, right? But if you believe fantasies that you make up in your own head and then respond to them, that's called schizophrenia, and I personally don't want to have anything to do with that. All right, let's get back to the business at hand. I've taken way too long here. All right, so with perfect matter-of-fact recall, the Son of Sam yesterday gave a meticulous account of his career as a mass murderer. He shot only pretty girls, he said, still with his silly smile, and even seen it all New York detectives felt a chill. No, he didn't just pick on anyone. He selected only the girls that Sam, a man he thought lived 6,000 years ago, ordered him to murder through messages passed on by his dog. Now, of course, this is the first myth of Son of Sam. Well, one of the big myths in the post-arrest period. I'm going to comment as I go along. I hope you don't mind. This whole dog thing, for those of you who are newbies, this was made up by Berkowitz in order to feign an insanity defense. He knew exactly what he did. He knew exactly why he did it. Berkowitz was an very smart, well-read person with a 118 IQ. He was no dummy, and he was extremely narcissistic and manipulative, still is to this day, to his alleged Christian friends who he uses as an ATM machine, constantly asking them for things. He just made this story up. So this is, of course, one of these mythologies that people still to this day believe. Those who really don't care about the case, if you tell them, if they even remember what Son of Sam was, they'll say, "Oh yeah, it's the guy who was told to kill by a dog." David Berkowitz, a rather boring 24-year-old postroom worker, was clutching a newspaper in which his face filled the whole front page and was surrounded by 20 policemen who jammed the Stark holding room just to get a look at him. This was the man who terrorized New York for a year, killing 6 people and maiming 7 others. He maimed 8 others, okay, just because now we have Wendy involved. He was the center of attention for the first time in his life, and was even correcting the police on minor details. "It was weird," said one officer. "I met many crazy people, but this guy is insane. He talks about murder like you and I talk about ice cream." So Shaft is got it going on here. Some theories pan out, some don't. Update the knowledge base and move forward. Exactly. I really actually feel terrible, and I have a lot of sympathy and pity for people who are still stuck believing that Mr. Real Estate existed. I mean, can you imagine still thinking just after Billy the Artist, that Mr. Real Estate exists and that there was this wide-reaching conspiracy? I mean, you have to be out of your mind at this point, literally clinically insane, to actually believe the cult theory. And judging from the people who are still espousing this stuff out there, I think my diagnosis of clinically insane is actually a sound one. All right, let's carry on. So, speculation. Why, Berkowitz was asked, did you kill so much in the borough of Queens? Queens girls are prettier. The water in Queens is purer, and this makes the girls prettier. Queens water, it tastes better than the Bronx. Now, of course, remember, that's right from his Borelli letter, which was not printed in the newspaper. No one knew about this tasty meat, right? I love to hunt, prowling the streets looking for fair game, tasty meat. The women of Queens are the prettiest of all. I must be the water they drink, right? With reference to Queens and water here. And then, of course, here he's talking about the water in Queens is purer, and this makes the girls prettier. Okay, so here he is referencing the Borelli letter, which again was not printed in the newspaper. The only way he would have known this is if he actually wrote it himself. So, Maria, ¿cómo estás? True, Shaft, evolution in the case. Exactly, an evolution in life. I mean, if we were still the same people we were, I came to Son of Sam when I was 20 years old, roughly. I'm 51. If I still had the same thoughts as a 20-year-old, it would actually be pretty sad. So Maria, my Puerto Doña Maria. She is very, very smart and very with it, listener. And of course, Mr. Real Estate was Trump, hired by Roy Cohn. So that's an interesting passage about water and Queens. Why did you kill Donna Loria, the first victim? She was a very nice girl. I only shoot pretty girls. I can tell a nice girl. I just pulled by them. I came around the corner and did it. You know, the two girls were just sitting in the car and this guy passes by out of nowhere. He sees them and the next thing, bing, dead. That's the world. Sam told me to do it. Why did you try to visit Donna Loria's grave? I just felt like it, but the grave was impossible to find. There has been much speculation that Berkowitz had a female rejection complex or might have been jilted. 5 out of 6 he killed were girls. No, he said, he liked girls, and he only shot at girls he liked. I'm no Don Juan, but I'm no virgin either. The girls' hair's length and color had nothing to do with their selection. It was orders. When I got a calling, I went out looking for a spot. The situation would be perfect. I would find a parking space. Now, before we get to the next passage, this is interesting here because this touches on something that we're seeing in the English newspapers that we did not get in the New York American newspapers. Here he says it. He goes, the girl's hair length and color had nothing to do with their selection. It was orders. This is what I've been telling you guys, and this is what I try to emphasize about the modern understanding of Son of Sam. It's all about erasing the myths in your head about this case. He shot young, he shot old, he shot blonde, he shot brunette, he shot female, he shot male, he shot you in a parked car, he shot you on the front stoops of your house, he shot you walking down the street. It made no difference to Disco Dave of any of these characteristics. The whole deal with him is that if you were in the wrong place at the wrong time and Disco Dave Berkowitz entered your realm, he was going to shoot you. Now, whether you lived or not, that was up to the fate of whatever happened and the trajectory of the bullets and all that kind of stuff. But the myths of Son of Sam not only made New York less safe during the crime spree, but they have also led to a complete and utter misunderstanding of what these crimes actually were. And because of that, a guy like Maury Terry was able to come in and manipulate a story to fit whatever mold he drunkenly came up with at Oliver's Bar in White Plains with his equally besotted friends. After getting off the phone with the mentally ill homicide detective, Hank Chinati, and of course, dealing with the absolute 100% lunatic, the guy who's absolutely out there. And of course, I'm talking about his mayoralty honor boots, James Rothstein from Minnesota, who has told me, and I have on tape, quote, I didn't investigate the Son of Sam, unquote. So the myths of Son of Sam, again, it's all about the myths. And what we try to do here is bring you that dose of reality that is needed to those of you who care about this case. I mean, let's face it. The first person who understands and who can read the room about Son of Sam and what people think or know about it now is me. The simple fact is, besides the people who listen to my channel, and there's like now a dwindling number. I mean, I care about every one of you, but the audience is shedding. I fully realize it because we're not talking about conspiracies and crazy stuff like we used to. Very few people care about this case. Okay. So that's just the long and short of it. It's just the stalwarts out here. Anyway, all right, so let's carry on. So here's the second page of the letter, of the article, A Killer's Creed, and we'll read it. But this is a picture actually of a person who we never ever really see. Victim's sister, Ricky Moskowitz, 16. I want him tortured as long as he lives. So here's Ricky Moskowitz, the sister of Stacy Moskowitz, the daughter of Jerry and Nasa Moskowitz, who herself, I believe, I'm not sure if she's still alive or not, because I know that there was another daughter that died as well. Someone in the I'm not up on the Moskowitz family history, So maybe someone in the audience can tell me if you know if it was Ricky who died. All right, let's carry on. So hold on, let's carry on from there. So the situation would be perfect. I would find a parking place for my car right away. It was things like that which convinced me it was commanded. So Berkowitz would find a parking space and think it was commanded. All right, okay. Why did he kill Christine Freund, shot as she sat with her boyfriend in a car? I was waiting along Austin Street and I went past the railroad station there, and then you turned around and started walking back. And I saw the two of them walking along. They turned the corner and went to the car. I ran up after them. That was the first time I had shot two-handed. The first shot made the window frost all over. I could see she was hit. I shot two more. I didn't want to hit him. I only wanted to hit her. So commentary real quick. So here he is talking about the Christine Freund shooting. Of course, John Catalano and I did a now legendary series on the Christine Freund shooting, where we, by looking at it through the lens of Maury Terry and how he lied about it, we actually say that's the value of Maury Terry now. You can learn about the truth by filtering his lies. So we went through all of the shootings through the lens of Maury, and then when we found all the police reports that he actually misquoted, mischaracterized, made up stuff, lied about, we were able to glean the truth. Just reading those police reports on their own actually would have been really boring. We were reading those police reports hoping that Maury Terry's story would pan out, but we realized that well, it just didn't. And one of the things, of course, that we recognized in reading these police reports, which answered the question about why, like a shooting of Carl Denaro, which was so wild, for instance, the shooting of Lomino De Masi, which was so wild. Donna Lauria, I wonder about, because it was actually pretty accurate. He did shoot her, but bullets were flying everywhere. Well, he answered it in his confession, and he answers it here. This was actually out before the confession came out, or because we only saw the confession recently, almost 50 years later. But this was in the English newspapers back then, that the Freund shooting was the first time he had shot two-handed, right? Then I turned and ran to my car and drove away. So think about all the heartache that, say, Carl Denaro could have been spared with being manipulated by Maury Terry so horribly all these years. Think about that heartache and that stress that he and all the time that he wasted, and quite frankly, reputation as well. If he had just knew this, if that Berkowitz shot with one hand when he shot him, I mean, I think he would have appreciated to know that. Anyway, it was in the papers, of course, in England, not here. So Berkowitz said that when he first started to kill, he was a terrible shot and missed a lot. The first 3 times I shot with one hand, I was lousy. I had trouble with the kick. Now, of course, one of the things we do here on the Grossman Files is we don't take stuff like that for granted. We had the great Milsurp do us an amazing video about the 44. And if you go and watch that video, either the live stream on my channel or the original raw video on his channel, you will actually see the 44 being shot and the enormous kick that it has. And of course, Milsurp did do some shooting with one hand, and it was actually a little interesting. But there's no doubt that 2 hands on a 44 is better than one. So here he is talking about why he was so wild, especially for the shooting of Denaro. He was shooting with one hand. The police first christened him Son of Sam and replying through the media to a note he left in Miss Freund's car. See, this is now a mistake. So Dave Moth said Ricky Moskowitz died in 1999. I think there was another one that died as well, but I could be wrong. So this is interesting, of course, and this, of course, is a shout out to everybody who does newspaper research, who thinks that that's the end all be all of doing crime investigation. Again, if newspaper research were the way to investigate crimes and make connections between people, why don't cops do it? Right? Why are there police if you can do everything you need with newspaper articles? But we're seeing yet another error in this in a newspaper article. He didn't leave the first Son of Sam note at the Freund shooting. He left it at the Suriani shooting, which was almost 4 months later. Okay. Saying he had been ordered to kill by Sam. They did not want to provoke him by addressing him as the 44 killer. Now, that's not correct because they constantly called him the 44 killer. So that's a little strange. It was a parking ticket on his 7-year-old cream Ford Galaxy near the scene of the last murder in Brooklyn when he shot dead 20-year-old secretary Stacy Moskowitz that led to his arrest. People asked if he had been watching her for a long time. So now he gets into Brooklyn and what he did in Brooklyn. For about an hour. At first, I was looking at the two in the blue Corvette. I wasn't commanded to do anything. Then I looked in the park and he, Robert Violante, Stacy's date, who was blinded in the shooting, saw me. I was ordered to get them. Now, this is actually 100% dead on accurate. And we know this because Catalano and I did a show called The Grubby Hippie Hoax in The Ultimate Evil, where we looked at Robert Violante's actual statements to the police and what he saw in the park. And he describes Berkowitz almost to 100% a T. He said the guy had a mustache, but it was a shadow could have been on the guy's face, and that was but other than that, he describes Berkowitz to a T. Same height, same weight, same hairstyle, everything. Robert Violante did in fact see Berkowitz in the park, and here Berkowitz is saying before this is 2 days after the arrest. Here he is corroborating that Violante saw him. And he was ordered to get him. The police came out of room 1312 at police headquarters, shaking their heads and saying they didn't feel hatred for him anymore, just sorrow, because as one weary cop put it, he was out of his mind. His life was twisted and it bent his mind too. Psychiatrist. So Dave Moss says here, Jody Moskowitz was 9. Her sister died in 1968. So they lost all their daughters so young. That is horrible. Psychiatrists were saying that LSD trips while he was serving in the army in Korea appeared to have unhinged him. Friends said his personality changed. Yes, and we've had those friends on our airwaves, exclusive to the Grossman files, where they all tell us the same thing. John Comparetto, Maria, and of course, Jeff Hartenberg, who I spoke to, and Lenny Dapolito, and all those people. Formerly hawkish and right-wing in his beliefs, he emerged from the army in 1973 espousing left-wing doctrines and supporting the Black Panthers. He had been adopted a few months old by Pearl and Nat Berkowitz, a childless Jewish couple who ran a hardware store. Those who knew him well said that when he reached his teens, he developed a complex about his mother having given him away and tried unsuccessfully to find her. When he was 14, Pearl Berkowitz died, leaving him shattered. Police asked him about the .44 murder weapon and a machine gun he had when arrested. I was going to kill in the Bronx. Do you know why I had the machine gun with me tonight? I'll tell you. I wanted to get into a shootout. I wanted to get killed, but I wanted to take some cops with me. Now, this is interesting, again, because it gets into the whole notion of other weapons. Here, Berkowitz is telling you, and this isn't the only place where we know this story. They found the machine gun in his car. They found a note that he wanted to go out and shoot up a disco. He said he wanted to go out and shoot a disco. So here, Berkowitz is telling you straight up that he planned to use a different weapon than the .44 to commit the last Son of Sam shooting. Berkowitz only used the .44. He never used any other guns. Bitch, are you for real? This guy used knives, guns. He used whatever he had to kill. He used rifles to shoot. He used machine guns to shoot. He used pistols, Molotov cocktails, and knives. Oh, he only used the .44. Okay, if that's what you want to believe, I can read you Rumpelstiltskin and Little Red Robin Hood as well, and maybe you'll believe that as well. He had spent last weekend driving through the fashionable Hamptons district of Long Island, where people like Jackie Onassis live, searching for a victim. He had road maps with escape routes marked on them. Why didn't he kill? I didn't get a sign. Yes, he was glad it was over at last. When he saw 15 policemen pointing revolvers at his head, there was really only about 5 there. He got into his car at the cheap apartment house in Yonkers where he lived. There was a sense of relief. Berkowitz was manacled hand and foot when he appeared in court, and that was the way his father, Nat, who had flown from his retirement home in Florida to be with his son, first saw him. Outside the hospital where he is being held, crowds gathered yesterday to try to get a glimpse of the son of Sam through the bars on the 6th-floor cell. Kill him, they chanted. He told the guard, my God, they'd tear me to pieces. Stacy Moskowitz's kid sister, Ricky, said she wanted him to be tortured for a long time, as long as he lives, suffering slowly and painfully. Perhaps the luckiest man in town is Craig Glassman, an auxiliary policeman who lived in an apartment on the floor above Berkowitz. Above? He lived on the roof of the apartment building? No, he actually lived in the apartment below Berkowitz. The son of Sam took a hatred to him, once tried to burn his door down. It's bizarre, said Mr. Glassman. He was always sending me letters about the streets running red with blood. Maybe I was a symbol of authority to him. I guess I'm lucky to be here. At the mailing office in the Bronx where Berkowitz worked, he told one girl to wear her hair in a bun because the killer only shot girls with hair down their back. It is being suggested that Berkowitz will never come to trial because of his mental state. Yesterday, the parents of one of his wounded victims, Robert Violanti, sued him for $10 million. The idea is to stop Berkowitz making a fortune in newspaper articles, and New York Governor Hugh Carey signed legislation to ensure that profits in such situations should go to the victims of crimes, not their perpetrators. Last night, Berkowitz was being guarded by policemen face-to-face in his cell after threats to kill him. It was the same hospital where his last victim, Stacy Moskowitz, died 12 days ago. Did he feel remorse? No. Why should I? And that, my friends, is the end of that particular article. Yo, what's going on near Gutter's Path? That's a guy who used to think I was out of my mind when I was into Maury Terry, and he stuck around long enough to see see Manny come around to the other side. So we always enjoy Near Gutter's Path and his comments and his sense of humor that he brings to the table. And I have a feeling I know Near Gutter's Path, or he's a Yonkers guy, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. So anyhow, that's basically it. Let me see if there's anything in the comments to talk about. It's been a pretty light. So Clark Rice says here, there's so much to unpack. I don't believe Maury T, but I can't get past some of the occult references in this case. Well, it's very easy to understand, Clark, especially if you watched our Psychiatric Sunday series. He was an adept reader and an avid reader of occult literature, even while he was doing, and for years prior to Son of Sam. He was reading all sorts of occult books, occult literature, books on symbolism, and fairly advanced reading, not like occultism for dummies. He was reading pretty heavy books. Sympathy for the Devil by Malachi Martin, Cult Bondage and Deliverance by Kurt Koch, and so on and so forth. So that's how he got the occult references. He was Berkowitz, again, another myth about Berkowitz is that he's not smart. Au contraire, mon frere, and I know that you don't think that, but I'm just saying the universal you does think that. Berkowitz was actually very, very smart, very well read, excellent writer. He was, I wouldn't say a first-class mind, but he had definitely was smarter than a lot of people out there. He was above average intelligence for sure. Okay, so thank you for that comment. I played in a touring band. Oh, possibly. I was friends with Scotty Mack from Hellbound. And I did a documentary for them, actually, for BronxNet back in '96. Maybe you remember that. Burke was looking forward to get caught live at 15 Minutes of Fame. So narcissistic. Yep, he loved it. Can the titles of books, some of them can, Milsurp, and some of them can't. One of them is a Jimmy Breslin book, I believe. I forget the name of it, but he writes about the books that he read, all in his Abramson letters. He gives a whole bibliography of every book that he read, and when he's writing to his friends in his true crime fan club, where he learned about Arliss Perry, they sent him tons of books and newspaper clippings. So this guy, forget about when he was in jail. Before he was arrested, he was an avid reader. So yes, Milser, yes. Wasn't there a Breslin book there? Yes, absolutely. So Near Gutter's Path, he knows Scotty. Yeah, Scotty McAloon, good guy. He lived down on Bailey Avenue. See, I was a Riverdale kid, so I never really knew these people until I hit my 20s. But Scotty Mac used to work in Dobbs Ferry at the pizza shop, and I used to work at Van Percussion there on Palisade Street. And I would go into the pizza shop, and that's how I met Scotty Mac. Oh, Bobby O, are you the bass player in Yonkers? Because if so, then I bought a bass off of you. Are you the guy who sells like 1 million basses in Yonkers? Because if so, I bought your Precision Bass Special, and this is going back probably about 15, 20 years now. Anyway, all right, cool. So good to see the stalwarts in here. Why was Maria crying? Now, we're not talking about Maria del Carmen. We're talking about this right here. We're talking about Maria Cortina was crying. Well, first of all, it's not Maria Cortina. It's Amidus from Conan. That's the drawing Billy the Artist copied, just like he copied Moloch was Gimel Ishbi. But according to Billy the Artist, who just made it up to Maury Terry, and and Maury bought it hook, line, and sinker, Maria was crying because Ken was mean to her. Meanwhile, Ken was Jimmy Olsen from Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. So it's ridiculous stuff. Anyway, yeah. Okay, cool. So Near Gutter's Path isn't Bobby. Yeah, I think it was Bobby D from Yonkers. That's who I'm talking about. Did Ken hit Maria with a bottle? Maybe in comic book land he did. So we're having some fun here. So basically that's it, guys. I mean, Gimel laughing, Gimel giggling in the corner. There's really nothing funnier than watching Billy the Artist tell these stories about how he hoosed Maury Terry. I mean, that was a classic moment in the history of this video series. Finding Billy was really one of the highlights of my life in terms of this. Okay, so Clark Rice says here, would you please comment on your take on no relevance? Okay, so Clark, you said you've been with me for 3 years, but you're showing me that you really haven't. Because if you really were with me for 3 years, and I'm not angry at you, I just was coming at you with a different, like, I thought you were telling me that you were with me for 3 years, so I was assuming that you were. No, I have a million. Go to my Untermeyer Park series playlist, and I have several videos on why Untermeyer Park had nothing to do with Son of Sam. It's just urban myths, legends. I walk around Untermeyer with Mike Lorenzo, who was an actual cop back then, who knew old-timer cops back then, whose stories they tell him. Never once did anybody actually see, who was in any official, ever see any of this occultic activity. It was mainly just teenagers partying like they did in the 70s and 80s, metalheads. And it was graffiti artists. And even Billy the Artist told us he was the one that wrote all the pentagrams everywhere and the upside down crosses and so on and so forth. So, yes, exactly. Drug money, coloring books and crayon. No, that's Billy the Artist for the drug money and dentistry work. Billy gets very angry at me when I say this, and he's called me up and he goes, why do you have to tell people about this? And the reason why, Billy, because I love Billy the Artist. Okay. So I don't feel I'm throwing him under the bus when I talk about something that he admitted to. You have to repeat this over and over because it's the actual truth and reality of what actually happened. You can't sugarcoat it. Maury Terry gave a drug, a person who was addicted to drugs. He gave him money to buy drugs for the story that Billy the Artist gave him. He also gave Billy the Artist money for Billy the Artist's mother to get new dental work. And of course, he gave, and it's there in black and white for anybody to read, he gave Berkowitz, in addition to prison commissary, Bibles for all his friends, shirts up the wazoo, he also gave him coloring books and crayons. So yes, Billy finessed Maury hard. Yeah, and Maury wanted to be finessed. It was like a thing that Maury had, almost like a weird fetish. Because anybody who actually believes Chinati and Rothstein and Jesse Turner and Alex Verone, the child rapist who was Vinny and Danny in The Ultimate Evil, anybody who believes this stuff, they want to be fooled. That's the only way around it, because otherwise, any honest dealer would realize that that this isn't good information. Okay. So, yes, Maria, she's taking her breaks and studying my drama lines for a play. Good, good. Hopefully I'll be down in Rico soon. Also, he cites many dog deaths. Yeah, he cited dog deaths. I can cite dog deaths too. It doesn't mean they actually happened. And if they happened, it doesn't mean that the Son of Sam cult is involved. It could have been a vet cremation place dumping dogs. It could have been one of a million things. Yeah, I guess it could have been occultic groups too, sacrificing German shepherds, although I've seen actually no proof of that actually happening. Then you have to take the next step. And this is what I always tell people in the conspiracy world. Great. You have your list of conspirators that Maury came up with. There's 80 people on there. Now what you have to do is you have to take the next step, because I can write names on a piece of paper too. It's not hard to write names on pieces of paper. It's the easiest thing to do. Like I'm going to actually do something right now really quickly. I've just wrote a name on paper, right? Like anyone can do that. So what people in the conspiracy world, and this has been the challenge not only from me but from everybody out there who is on team reality, whether they're my friends or not, the challenge is to establish an actual criminal conspiracy between those people. You have to get them in a room together conspiring. You have to have a third party who's not a conflict. You have to have them testify to it in a court of law. You actually have to prove the crime they committed. You have to have a victim. You have to have all of this stuff. And so far, that's not been forthcoming in the cult investigation. There's a lot of names on pieces of paper in Maury Terry's files. And if I was still in the headspace I was 3 years ago, where I thought that was actual proof, I would be very excited about Maury Terry's files. We found it. We have the names of the 22. Well, where's your shows? I want to see the shows where they're proving this stuff. I want to see actual proof that could be used in a court of law to actually convict one of these people on this list, because I've spoken to several people on this list, including Donna Loria's old boyfriend, who was called a bestialitist and a Gambino crime family member and a member of the cult. I have a feeling you're going to be seeing from this guy at some point. You're going to be seeing from him at some point in the next year or so. But until then, you're just going to have to take my word for it that when this guy, and his name is Vinny Minutolo, when he heard about what Maury Terry wrote about him, he wasn't very happy about it. Let's just put it that way. So Maury, Walden, New York. Yeah, I've heard that too. Again, what does that have to do with David Berkowitz in Son of Sam on Pine Street? See, that's all I care about. And Clark, I hope I'm not coming off as harsh, because I really don't feel that way towards you. I just get a little salty sometimes when people still bring this up, because it's like, I care about Son of Sam. So therefore, things like Scientology, the process, dogs found in Walden, New York, Joseph Carozza getting shot on his yacht in New Rochelle. These things are meaningless to me. I don't care. But Blue Oyster Cult's album cover, people can have fun with that stuff, but it's not going to get you anywhere on your dying day. And I'm not talking to you, Clark. I'm talking to the conspiracy heads. On their dying day out there, they'll still be saying, Donovan was Mr. Real Estate. So hold on. I walk dogs in parks and I found ritual sites? Okay, all right. Listen, when I was 16, I went out one day to the local woods here in Riverdale, and I found a shitloads of dead cats. They were stabbed to death. A couple of them were on the train tracks. And obviously something had happened the night before that was very untoward. What does that have to do with Son of Sam? That's kind of my point here. And if you don't get it, I don't think you're really going to get it. So I'm not going to really try to explain it much more. So anyway, let's see. Billy for president. Yo, BTA for president. Totally. Maury got circle jerked by Billy the Artist. The Unsolved Mystery Show episode gave credence to my. Yeah, of course it did, because they had no other Kaiser. They had no other information to go by. We hadn't come along yet to blow all this up. Billy never implicated real people. Exactly. Billy did this drawing in high school of Conan, of Gimel Ishbi from Conan, and he did this drawing of Amidus from the same comic book. And he gave them to Maury Terry, and Maury Terry passed them off. He even gave these to Berkowitz, and Berkowitz said, "Yep, these were members of the cult." Body language off the chart for lying. The crazy thing is how we all believed it until 2022. Like, none of us should have believed this, but when you think of the world in a certain way. Like, I'm a conspiracy guy. I always was, and I always sort of will be. But I then put in conspiracy into true crime, which was a mistake. It just doesn't. That the conspiracy theories don't work in true crime. It's just not two things that don't really mix, in my opinion. And I forgot where I was going with that. So sorry. So near gutter's path, dead dogs in parks equals vets. Looking to save money for sure, without a doubt. You'll find cases of many vets that got caught doing ish like that. Yeah, exactly. It was the first thought in my head when I heard about 80 dogs. Because how are you going to get 80 dogs in one place and then sacrifice them? You would have to have 300 people in the woods. I mean, it's just not. Oh yeah. The unsolved mystery. Yeah. So yeah, they were who-sowed by Maury Terry. Plain and simple. Sarah Wallace from ABC News was who-sowed by Maury Terry. All of these people were, including me, including you, and including everybody who probably has come through this video series. We should make a B flick, horror flick about a nut who reads the ultimate evil and takes it serious and dubs himself the 23rd disciple. That's good. Cool, Clark. Thank you for understanding. I apologize if I come off harsh. Sometimes my people skills aren't the best, but I always try to be as good as possible to people. So my cat, so Lorenzo's here. My cat Midnight got run over in front of Sacred Heart Church in 77. Damn you, Berkey. And no one knows more about how bullshitted Maury Terry and the whole Untermeyer thing was than, of course, Mike Lorenzo, the great stalwart Mike Lorenzo. All right, so this has been fun, guys. I only wanted this to really be a 25-minute pop-up, but y'all got me talking about all sorts of other things. But that's fun. So Lorenzo, let's keep it going. As long as you guys are into it, I'm into it, and F it. One of the things is I look at my analytics anyway, and people only watch like 8 minutes of my videos anyhow. So whatever. Unsolved Mysteries is the McDonald's of true crime investigation. Manson 2. Yeah. the real estate people should look into Donald Werby. You know what I say? I say, like, if you're really into conspiracies, like, work on some real shit that actually has modern implications. Like when we did the Alfred Hunt Howell series, we hold on one second. I lost my train of thought there because I was reading Lorenzo's quote. You should see Untermeyer on weekends now. And welcome back to the Druids if they ever existed. It's true. It's so true. Oh yeah, I remember where I was going with this. So when I was doing the Alfred Hunt Howell series, because that was a spinoff of Son of Sam. When I originally got into Son of Sam, there were just absolute asshats like John Mitchell, who said, "Oh, uh, Alfred Hunt Howell was Mr. Real Estate." Okay, I don't know how you know that, but anyway, so I went on that whole tangent. But one of the things we realized when we looked into Alfred Hunt Howell's life was the existence of this Dodge Foundation. And knowing about foundations already and how evil they were from Webster Tarpley and his groundbreaking work on Obama and the fake Obama presidency and his earlier work on 9/11. Webster Tarpley in 2006 and 7, I was reading all about the evil foundations, the Ford Foundation, for instance, the MacArthur Foundation. And then, of course, I learned about the Dodge Foundation, which actually got its start here in Riverdale. And people like Alfred Hunt Howell was on its board of directors. Well, Stephen Kerr, who's the father of a basketball coach, who just endorsed Kamala Harris, he's on the Dodge Foundation. And Stephen C. Rhea is on the Dodge Foundation, and he's out there talking about trans your gender's a social construct. I mean, who actually believes this shit? I'll tell you who believes it. The elite who want to push these luxury beliefs on all of us, so we're all fighting each other while they laugh to the bank. Stephen C. Rhea from the Dodge Foundation is also responsible for papers about going cashless and about how communism is great. So, and this is a guy on the board of a copper mining company, essentially. So, why do you have an industrialist talking about communism being great, cashless society, and your gender is a social construct? I mean, are you out of your mind with that crap? So, those are the real enemies, right? Some dude wearing a robe in the woods in 1970 and talking about the end of the world is not the enemy. The enemy are the people who are actually doing these things to us in real time. And so I often say, right, near Gutter's Path, it's culture war bullshit to distract the working class, right? And everybody right now is the working class. That's how they're structuring this world, serfs and elites. So my point is, to everybody who's making up all these things about me being Operation Mockingbird and my dad, who was the spokesman for the PBA, which was, if anyone knew New York City politics, the PBA is actually against the NYPD most of the time. Your lives would be better served getting to the real sources of evil on this planet, and they lie within the foundation world of the modern liberal leftist elite, which controls both the left and the right. Okay, so anyway, guys, I think I've said enough for today. I don't like to dive into politics. You guys are here only to hear me to talk about Son of Sam. And if I start getting into politics and gardening and stuff, I'm going to lose even more of my audience than I already have. So anyhow, great to see you guys today. I want to say thank you so much for being with me. Please tune in Sunday, August 11th, the day of the anniversary of the arrest, where we are going to look at the smile of Disco Dave. All right, guys, I'll see you then.